wait for this. Hi. Okay. This is really intense right here. Everyone, welcome to DHT Milcom 2000. Yay! Can everyone see my screen okay? Awesome. So, I was explaining to a very good friend of mine, a former coworker, why I was not in New Jersey yesterday, and I said that I was at DHT Milcom, which he said, so it's like the Tom Hanks of web dev conferences, which is now the new official tagline of DHT Milcom. So we also have Tom Hanks as a sponsor. So yeah, I curated this thing. Michael had me come out March of 1999 to speak at the first ever DHT Milcom, which was in San Francisco. So now we're like bi-coastal, right? And so I had given a talk called Malware Injection Proof Your Front-End Code in 3 Easy Steps Our DHTML Ancestors Don't Want Us to Know About. And we had like some scheduling issues and we had some extra time, and he's like, well, why don't you just give that talk again so we can record it? And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea, but a lot has happened since March. So I figured I'd update it a bit, but just to go through a couple of things that I taught in March was the shiffer way of web development, which is something that I feel like is everyone's goal as a developer, sort of our end game for why we create apps and web development. So I always try to remember these different facets of it, but there's definitely a threat to the shiffer way of web development, and that is primarily malware. Malware is counterproductive to this design pattern. It's a waste of time. It causes us to lose money, resources. It makes our web rings not look so cool if all of a sudden Chrome's telling you that there's, malware on it. And it's especially rampant with those of us who develop with DHTML, which makes sense, being that the D stands for dangerous. And in America, HTML is something that has been plaguing our teens and ourselves. And we just don't know that much about it, obviously. So it's time that we start focusing more on malware and getting rid of it and preventing it. And those are really only the 3 simple steps to making sure that our DHTML content isn't full of grossness. So how do you find malware? Well, you ask someone to do that. How do you get rid of it? You delete it. And how do you prevent it? And this is another thing that I had introduced back in March, and that's called the virus method for preventing malware in our code. So for vaccination, we make our sites look like the site is already infected with malware. So like this is back when I worked at the NBA, and this is what the NBA site looked like. You could also put a virus on your site already, because nobody is going to infect your site if it's already infected. That's crazy. It's like if you have the flu's not going to get you at the same time. That just doesn't happen. Interrogation. I introduced this concept earlier in the year called the Ask a Cop method, because we all know that if you ask a cop, if they're a cop, they have to tell you. Here's some JavaScript. So basically, you just say, like, are you malware? And like the malware has to say yes or no, and then you just follow suit. Recursion is just passing work onto another computer. If you don't have a master's in computer science like I do, this is probably a little bit too difficult of a concept, but I created a bookmarklet where you can just put your site into the bookmarklet, and then when they click the bookmarklet, the site shows up on the page. So it's also really good where like you don't have to worry about dealing with putting your site on the clouds and stuff like that. You can also use W3 schools to show your site by giving a snippet of code to them, and then they can go into the try it yourself editor and put the code in there, and then you see your site right over here. So also you're like avoiding clouds, and therefore like you're not paying for things, and that's just really useful. And W3 Schools isn't going anywhere as far as I know. There are other things that you can do, avoiding different types of file extensions. I had reasons for this, but I don't know, but just trust me. Don't use Vim. Use HTML instead of HTML, because there was really no malware on sites back when we used .htm, so I think that L kind of like fucked things up for us. And then finally, confuse malware, because there's an S in virus or whatever. Frame sets. If your site's full of frame sets, there's more places for malware to have to try to find. So the more frames that you have in your page, the harder it is. You're cool. Horizontal scrolling. So horizontal scrolling, that like photographers love this. Like, it's really hard to like access that as a human. So like if a human can't access it, or if you use non-semantic tags and like machine can't read it, then like you don't have to worry about viruses trying to read it. Image-only development is also something that I introduced personally over the past year. And if your site's just an image, then the malware can't go anywhere. So you really should just start using images everywhere, which one of my talks that we're going to have today involves like pixels, and those are in images, so it should be good. And use entities instead of tags, so you don't have to have like less than, greater than symbols in your HTML. Just use entities, and yeah, you're going to see HTML on the page, but we're all developers. We know what that turns into. So yeah. So I introduced the shiffer way, the virus method, and talked about how we should be serious about malware. But none of you listened, because here we are today, and the world is still full of malware. And I'm really used to people like listening to what I say, so I'm a little ticked off right now. So that's why the rest of my talk now is the state of the malware. And I'm going to give you some examples of malware that we've encountered this year, and then hopefully you can take this information and go home and take a long, hard look in the mirror and be ashamed of yourselves. So Heartbleed was this malware in OpenSSL. I don't know, it has a nice logo. Secrets were leaked. That wasn't cool. Shell Shock, the New Order album that came out in '86. I thought that they were remastering, but like it turns out that has nothing to do with New Order. It was this like vulnerability in Bash. Extreme Tech called it a deadly new vulnerability. I don't know what was updated about it, but all I know is it sounded scary. What was leaked? Probably secrets. I don't know. I'm running out of time, so I'm not gonna go through the rest of these other. But here we are today. Here we are today at DHT Milcom 2000. And this is the first time back in March that I gave a satirical talk, and I'm here in front of you giving a serious one. But I really feel like I've got 5 awesome speakers that are going to talk to you about a whole variety of things. Pixels, Jurassic Park came up. I saw Jurassic Park and I said yes, I don't care what it's about. Internet subculture in the early 2000s, a whole bunch of awesome stuff, SEO, which is probably the most important. When I had announced on Twitter, I don't know if you heard of it, but I was like, I'm so excited to curate DHT Milcom, a conference where I gave my first satirical talk, blah, blah, blah. And this guy, he brought up this question and turned it into like a 6-month campaign about whether satire is ruining JavaScript. And so I'm here today to ruin JavaScript. And I'm glad that all of you here are here to help ruin JavaScript with me, and to show that this needs to happen. There are some really important people in JavaScript that have faved that tweet. They're excited, like my friend Angus, Florida, Potch, I don't know who that guy is, Matt, my coworker. So this is really something that needs to happen, and events like this are super cool because really we just all want to have fun while we're injecting malware into all of our sites. So thank you for being here. Our first talk is going to be my pal Pavel, so pretend that He-Man's playing on the screen and enjoy DHT Milcom.